Welcome back to Finding Common Ground with Heather and Steve. Today we have Loretta Claiborne. She lives in Pennsylvania, but her name is known all over. I want to hop in and tell a little bit about your story, but you're the one who's going to take over. So I'm not going to steal the good stuff. Loretta was born, and it sounds like she had some challenges. She had some difficulty walking and maybe talking. I'll let her hop into that, but it didn't stop her. And so that's what I want everybody to think about as they're listening to Loretta go through all the different parts of her story. There's a barrier, there's a mountain in front of you. You kept on climbing. So I am so excited to have you here. Before we started recording, I said you have a movie about your life. I mean, how amazing is that? That tells everybody that you are somebody that's worth making a movie about. Why don't you tell us a little bit about when you were younger, when you were first born or, early on? Did your family have an idea of what was going on with you back then?
My mother knew at the beginning. And of course, my
Mm-hmm.
mother faced challenges. My mother was very bright. She actually went to Temple. There's a picture of
Oh,
her at the steps at
mm-hmm.
Temple University. I don't know where it is in the family, but I
Mm-hmm.
know somebody has that picture. I remember seeing it. But she knew I was different. She had my two brothers and a sister before me, and then me. And then, of course, she
Mm-hmm.
had, other children. She had four others living and two that didn't make it into the world. But she knew
Mm-hmm.
something was different, but nothing wasn't going to stop her. I remember
Right.
being a little kid and she would say to me, she would punish me just like the others. I got to be eaten just like everybody else. I got put in my place just like everybody else. You didn't sit at the table and play at your food. You sat at the table and you said your grace and you ate. You didn't
Mm-hmm.
come to her table, put your hands on the table. Get your elbows off the table. Someday you might eat with the president. I remember her saying that a lot of times. And I would look at my sisters and brothers, put my head down and say, yeah, right. In my mind, not by mouth, I will never eat with the president. But as time went by, she fought. Came for school. I repeated the first 3 grades in school. And they came to my mother and says, we cannot educate your daughter. There are places for children like her. And my mother and her big, round self, bold, she was a mother. She took in everybody's kids, not just hers. She turned around and said, let me tell you something. I got 6 children at home and I have Loretta. When you go to school and it has a special education class, and you're going to educate my Loretta. Well, we had sent you to see other schools, and they're lovely. There are places for children like Loretta. She turned around and says, let me tell you something. I'm going to raise my child. Like I told you, I have 7 children, not 6. Come on, Loretta, we got some work to do. And so she would take me home. Yes, we saw Lawton State School and Hospital. We saw Eastern State School and Hospital. And I really wanted to go to Lawton State School and Hospital. And I really wanted to go to Eastern State School and Hospital because I wouldn't get picked on because I saw kids that were just like me. But
Mm-hmm.
behind my mom's mind, she goes, no way. Yeah, you're going to go to school. You're going to go right out to Ferguson, right where you're going. And you got friends there. And that's it. That's the end of that story. You're going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So I had an Uncle Herb that lived behind us. And I remember going up to his house doing little chores. He had one arm. And he taught me how to count money. He said, I want to learn how to count your money. Count those pennies again. There's no 50 pennies in that pack. Count them again. I counted them, Uncle Herb. And he says, nope, count them again. And he was right. There was 48 pennies in the pack. And he said to me, you got to learn how you count your money because if you don't, somebody else will count it for you. And he looked at me and he says, you got to basically learn how to read. People tell you that their kids can read, but if they don't understand what they're reading, they can't read. And that's where a lot of my problems is reading. Not counting money. You ain't going to cheat me out of a penny. I don't need times tables because I can add like nobody's business and I can subtract. So getting back to the story, I went to Ferguson. I went to Smith. As time went by, I graduated from William Penn Senior High School. That was my mom's main thing, was for her
Mm-hmm.
daughter to graduate from William Penn Senior High School. And not only that, for her daughter to get a diploma, not a certificate, that Loretta Claiborne has attended York City School District or William Penn Senior High School. Loretta Claiborne has completed her studies at William Penn Senior High School.
Mm-hmm.
So it was that drive that my mother had. And I remember at times, like I told you about hanging up the sock and sticking it
Mm-hmm.
between the towels. Uh-uh. One day while I was running, and she looked at me and said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Rita, everybody's walking down the street. I'm going to be late. You told me if I be late, then I'm going to get a beat and have to stay in the house for a week. I don't want to be late." She says, "I don't care what you say. You get your tail back up that step. You look in that mirror and look at that head and fix that hair." So I did. I went back upstairs. I took some hair grease, put it on my hair, took my brush, combed it back, took my ponytail holder, put it back in, braided it at the end. Now you look good. Now you can walk out my house. Because guess what? In my house, when you walk out my door, I want you to look your best. Because then you'll feel your best. And then you'll be your best. Kids might tease you at school, but they ain't going to tease you about how you look and how you feel. Now you can go to school and you better not be late when you get home.
That is such a great lesson though,
So it,
because
it was the
don't you
drive.
don't you think that sometimes, and I can
I would
say
get
this
mad.
as a mom, though, I can also say, like, sometimes I baby my kids, and I know I'm doing it. And then I think, no, that's not serving them if I do it for them. Like they won't know what to do when I'm not there. But you know what really solidified that for me, Loretta? I worked in a nursing home and there were a couple people with disabilities there. They probably should have been at a group home or something else, but they were there.
Oh, isn't that heartbreaking when you see
It
that?
was so sad. And this one girl couldn't feed herself, so she would just stare at her plate of food until someone came in to feed her. So each day I'd go in and I'd stab the food, hand her the fork, and then after a while I'd hand over hand have her stab the food. And by the end, she's eating the food on her own. They deliver the tray, and everybody said, "How'd you teach her that?" And I said, "I expected her to do it because I didn't want her to be hungry." Sitting there and waiting for someone to feed you messes with your
Yes.
head. It makes you feel like you're less than other people. If she couldn't have done it, like if she had no arms or like there was no way for her to do it,
That was a
fine.
horse of a different color.
Right. But
Yeah.
this, she just needed practice and someone to believe in her. And that's what your mom knew before there was any books on disability or how to raise a child that, is wired differently or has different needs. There was none of that back then, right? I mean, your
Nope.
mom just knew
They
it.
put you in an institution and told your mom, go home and raise your other children.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
That
That
happened a lot. I was over my niece's house last night and I saw this movie called Crip Camp. And
Oh,
it was
that's my favorite. I love that
how those
movie.
people got up and advocated. And when they had the disability rights law in 1990, they had the president presenting the law after their fight. See, they were persistent. They were
Mm-hmm.
persistent. In fact, one of the guys who was in our club, he was our club president. We had this group. It wasn't a club, it was a group. And it was people that came from all over over the state. And we met. And it was called Speaking for Ourselves. It was to teach you about advocacy, to get up and stand. And people would come there and ask, what do you want for your future? Things are changing. And somebody would say, I want a real job that pays real money. Somebody would say, I would like to live on my own, and in that type of thing. And you look today, it's that Crip Camp movie, and a lot of those people that in speaking for ourselves and all over this country deciding that, hey, you have this for this and you have this for that. Why can't people with disabilities have this? The sad thing
Mm-hmm.
is, though, Crip Camp was mostly people who were physically challenged, but they had strong mind, good mind. They could learn, they could read.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some who were blind. There were some who used a speaking board, but they were very, very much like educated. It wasn't like for children like me who were in special ed and weren't educated. But when
Mm-hmm.
I look back, we had come so far, but we still got a long way to go. If you get a chance, watch the movie called Patrice.
Okay.
It was just made like 3 years ago, if that. because I saw the young lady at the White House in 2024. And it was about a woman who wanted to marry. And the system told her, if you marry, you'll lose your SSI benefits, whatever they got. I don't get SSI. I get regular Social Security because I worked. And it was just sad. And so she stayed with it. The young lady who was autistic, she got in and she got these group of people to work with her, and they were persistent and they worked at it, worked at it, and worked at it. They went to Washington and they sat and they said, well, we can't get married. Why? Everybody else can get married. So they came up with an idea to have a commitment ceremony. And all the roadblocks that the system put ahead of them to keep them from marrying. It was awful, awful. But
It's
back in
just
that same,
it's a normal everyday human thing to get married. It's just insane to think that we would tell people they can't do that.
yes, and
Hmm.
then punishing them by holding their support system.
Hmm.
But yet in our country, they'll go to a prison and says, oh, these prisoners need this. I know, I'd spoken in prisons. I never forget when I spoke in the prison out in Western Pennsylvania, and the gentleman said, does anybody have any questions? I said, yes. I put my hand. I said, the food that we're eating here, is this shipped in or is this made by the people here in your facility? Because, oh no, you couldn't call them prisoners. He had to call
Yeah.
them those who reside. Really? Wait a minute. These guys committed crime. Our people,
Mhm.
I'm thinking in my back of my head, I never committed a crime. And they were going to send me away to something like a prison. Here are these people. He says the food you're consuming right now is the food that's consumed throughout this facility. And our people here in this facility cook these meals. And I'm like, really? Saying it to myself, really? This food is off
Mhm.
the hook. And they're eating this good? Hey, I don't eat this good at home. I let them know. I let them
Yeah.
know just like that. I said, I'm going to ask you a question. How many of these folks return to this facility? He said, Miss Claiborne, more than what you think.
Mm.
And they do more for prisoners than they do for people who never committed a crime, who want to try to be a part of society, want to try to fit in.
Hmm.
Get the story?
Yeah, I do. There's a couple of people that I know that lived in group homes, and during the pandemic, they couldn't go outside and they just missed going outside. And I remember saying that, geez, even in prison, they get mandatory time outside. I can't believe that
You can't go
they
outside and
have
sit on
lots
the
of
porch.
rights. Yeah,
You can't
yeah.
go outside and sit on the porch or walk to the park and back. The parks are empty. Well, I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
But
No.
my life, a student asked me one time, if you could change your life, would you change it? I said, no, I would never change my life because I'm hoping that what happened in my life, I could pass on to the future and it doesn't happen again. I said, how do
Thank
you know
you.
where you're going where you don't know where you come from? My life is like history. So you learn from that history and hope and look for the better for the next generation. Today, I still fight. I still
Hmm.
fight. Whether it's going to the doctor. I remember going to the doctor one time and I was complaining. And she looked at me and says, oh, you're getting up in age. And I was like, no, no. Well, this is this problem. She kept rocking. And I sat there and I said, doctor, I think you forgot to give me my woman's exam last year. You didn't forget, but you said you would do it this year. I was just a year later. I said, now I'm complaining about my stomach. So finally, she says, well, you're going to have to wait. I was smart. Where I was dumb at, I didn't take my knitting with me. Sat there for almost 3 hours. Last appointment was mine again. Sat there. She told me to get undressed. She left out. I got disrobed. I got on the table, waited. The other nurse came in and prepped the things. And then the other nurse stand there because when you do your ladies exam, you have to have another person there. Doctor comes in, starts the exam. She says, oh my God. Oh my God. She says, Miss Claiborne, get your clothes on right now. Can you have somebody take you out to the hospital tomorrow morning? And I looked at her. I said, I can ride my bike. No, 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 no. You ain't riding the bike. Here I found out I had a mess.
Oh my
If I
goodness.
wasn't persistent, it comes back from my mom. It comes back from all those people I met along the road in this journey. If I wasn't persistent, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today. And
That's
a lot of our
mhm.
people who have ID and IDD don't have that voice for them. So those mothers out there, those young people who want to see the world and get out in the world and take the next step, you're 19, 20, 21, advocate, fight for yourself. Because if you
Mhm.
don't, or your mother doesn't, nobody else will. And I'm not talking about a physical fight. I'm talking about a calm fight. Breathe in, use your breath, think, and remember that you are just as important as everyone else. And you deserve the same rights to belong, to be included, and take part in society, whether it's for a job, whether it's to take the next step to get a home, whether it's to leave your parents, whether it's to try to be your best in anything. My mom was persistent, and it wasn't me. It wasn't just me. It was also those people that Uncle Herbert taught me about how to count my money. Years later, I learned that he was right because I was cheated out of a lot.
Mhm.
The
Steve,
people that I don't
Steve,
work with today.
I was gonna say I see Steve chomping at the bit. I don't know if you have something you want to ask. I just looking at his eyes. He's like he's a quiet man. Sometimes we gotta draw him in, right?
Well, you
Yeah,
can wheel him in.
yeah,
I'm good
Loretta.
at fishing, you know.
Yeah,
It's just
Loretta.
my
Look,
bait's not the good.
I think your mother and my mother came from the same rule of tough love. I can remember.
Yes.
I literally remember. You just flashed it back to me. We had a clothesline in the backyard. I had to do the laundry all over again because I messed it all up from what she wanted me to learn. And all those things, I look back at the things that she taught me with that tough love. It made me a better parent, made me a better dad, made me a better father going forward because I remembered all that stuff and I would help my wife and I would help my kids do the same
Mhm.
thing and pay it forward. And so, I appreciate that part of your background. I think it's so important. And you're right. A lot of parents, and we do foster care. A lot of them grow up with no parents, none. And somebody has to step up and be that parent or caregiver or voice. And so I'm glad you're out there, and I'm glad that there's others out there speaking up. The turning point, was there a turning point in the very? I know you mentioned your mom. Is there any other turning points that helped shape you in this? I mean, how did
Yes.
you wind up with Special Olympics and maybe a little bit of that?
I was working at a shelter workshop. I go to school. I go to school a week and work a week. And there was a counselor there. He knew I had some anger issues. I was taking a lot of medication, and you look at me wrong, you were going to get it. So he knew I had this problem. And I never forget one day I was at the workshop. I heard, "Can Loretta Claiborne please come to the office? Loretta Claiborne, can you please come down?" I was like, saying to myself, "I'm going to go home. I got to walk. What do they call me? The office." So I go in the office and I sit. And there was this counselor that I had. I said, "What did I do, Mr. Gilby?" He said, "Settle down, take a deep breath." I said, "What did I do?" He said, "You ain't did nothing, but I think I have something for you." And I looked at him. What my mom said in the back of my head, "I want you to go to that workshop. I want you to do your job. You don't take nothing. You understand? Somebody offer you something, you don't take it. You come there, you do your work and leave. Because you take something today, they might ask for something later. Ain't nothing free in this world." So Mr. Gil Reef looked at me. He says, "I think I have something for you." And I said, "No, thank you." And he looked at me. He says, "Wait." I didn't even open my mouth. And so he looked at me and he said, "Loretta, this is called Special Olympics. This paper." He was reading the paper because I couldn't read that because I knew the word Olympics. And I pulled the paper up, put it in my pocket. And that was the end of the story until I got home. I said, "Oh, Rita, Mr. Lee gave me this paper. What's this for?" And she looks at it. And she's talking to another neighbor playing cards. And she goes, "I ain't got money for this." And the neighbor picks it up and says, "Look, it's for people like Loretta. Why don't you let Loretta do that? It's better than all those pills she's got in a jar." I thought my mom forgot about it. She threw the paper up in the refrigerator. That Saturday morning comes, get up, you get out of my house right now. You gotta get your backside out of my house right now. You go to that Special Olympic program. Take another damn free sandwich. Now you gotta get your. That's how my mom talked. I'll walk. I said, but don't harm me. Get there. So I started on the way. It was raining. Then lightning. It was January. It's called thunder lightning.
Mm-hmm.
I got to the workshop. I'm scared to death of lightning. I said, I was mad. Went to the practice. A man gave me a ride home. And Rita said, how'd you get home? I said, Mr. Lee brought me home, my counselor. He said, oh, how was that Special Olympics? I said, it was okay, but I quit. She said, what did you say? I quit. So I think that was the turning point of my life. That martial arts. I got into martial arts. Did it for many years. Because my mom was one of them. You start something today, you don't quit until I tell you to quit.
And that's
Here I
something,
am
right?
today.
Because maybe you would give up when
That was
things get hard.
1970.
Oh, wow. See, it was a different time, but it's something so important that still applies to today.
It still
Um,
applies today. Two people are, I see young kids and I see young people, I quit. I said, man, you quit before you even give it a chance.
right?
And
Exactly.
it was not the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah. I have
My
a
mom
fun
was like that.
story. I have a fun story that I think connects to your story, which makes me so excited. Me and my daughter Devin are going to present at SUNY Brockport in March, and she wants to the audience to know how it feels when people underestimate you, when they make judgments just based on how you look or act or how your voice sounds. And so we were looking for stories about what we could do. Now, my daughter Devin's been in the Special Olympics too, but we found this story from 1995 when Bill Clinton was going to fly into the opening ceremony of the Special Olympics. And he was going to come in the helicopter, and they gave everybody in the audience a disposable camera because they wanted them to memorialize that
The
moment,
Africans.
right?
It was the
Yes.
Africans.
So you
They
okay?
turned the
So
camera backwards and the guy thought they were
yes,
stupid. And
yep,
they turned the camera
exactly.
backwards and said, why are you doing that? He says, no, 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 no. You need to turn it this way. No. And they're looking. He said, why are you doing that? The guy looked at him. He says, look through. It's bigger. You can see the person far away, closer.
Right? He was using it as a telescope because they looked into the audience and all the flashes are going off except one section. And like you said,
Yeah.
they assumed that those people with disabilities from a different country didn't know how to use a disposable camera when really they were using
Yeah.
it a way that made a whole lot of sense. You know, they did not
Yep.
presume competence. They were underestimating them. So I loved that story. And I think it kind of connects to were you at that?
I was
Olympics
at
or
those
run?
games. You know what I
Yes.
always say? Don't judge a book by its cover. You judge it by its
Yeah,
contents.
I love that. I love that. Can I use
So
that
don't
quote when
judge
I tell
people
that
by the way
story?
they look.
Yeah.
Don't judge people by the way they look, because it might be, who knows? You might be judging that guy that walking down the street, and he might look to you different, but he might be a billionaire. You don't know
Hmm.
that.
Right.
Perfect example is Warren Buffett. I met him.
Did you?
Yes.
Wow.
And I remember talking to him, and he says, I'm just a cheap old man. Blah, 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 blah. I had this car 20 some years. My wife keeps saying to me, I need to get a new car. I'm just a cheap old man. I said, Mr. Buffett, you're not a cheap old man. You're frugal. You're like me. I'm frugal. There's a difference
Hmm.
between cheap and frugal.
Hmm. Absolutely. Tell us about the Special Olympics. So here you are, a child that had motor problems, right? Like it was difficult in the beginning to move, and then your mom started making you walk everywhere and even in the snow, right? Like, so you built up some muscles, but how did you get to the Olympics part?
Well, that was way after I was in going to high school, 10th grade, going to school to work program. And like I said, it was that Mr. Lee Gilreath, the counselor, after a bad day at work. I thought
Hmm.
I was going to be in trouble because I was in trouble earlier.
Hmm.
And when he called me, I was going to say, I quit. But I knew I couldn't say that because of my mother. And he says, I think I have something for you better than all those pills and those bottles. Like you go to Mrs. Saltzgiver to get. And I said, what is it? And he looked at me and handed the paper. He said, this is Special Olympics. I see you running to the workshop. You don't even ride your bike. My bike has a flat. I would immediately right back up. You don't even take the bus in this way. I don't ride the bus. That's because me and this lady got in a fight and they kicked me off the bus. And it was just back and forth. And that's how I got into Special Olympics. 1970, January, walking in the rain,
Mhm.
saying a few choice words to myself, but I knew I had to go because I knew my mom was waiting. It was the
Mhm.
toughness of her. And if it wasn't for her saying you quit today, you'll never, you'll always be quitting, well, she's right. Here I am, 55
Mhm.
years, 56 years later.
It's a great story. Thank you so much. Steve, is there anything that you want to ask before we close out the show? I mean, we have a few more minutes, but I just want to
Yeah.
make sure we hit all the good stuff.
Yeah, you went from Special Olympics and excelling at it. How did you transfer into being a spokesman and an advocate? Because I saw
To
you.
Special Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Actually,
saw
I've
you.
never had training through Special Olympics. I actually trained athletes to do speaking, but it was through a counselor that I had. It was like a mentor from New York, and she looked at me and she says, "Loretta, we were coming from Baltimore. I think you could speak." I said, "No, nobody wants to hear people like me. Who cares about people like me?" And she was persistent. She kept at it and kept at it, and we started going to school speaking to elementary kids. And now I speak to presidents. And this June, you will probably want to read the book, the Loretta Claiborne. It's not a story of my life. The book is titled "The Finish Line Is Only the Beginning," a journey, and it's about all these people I've met through my life. So it'll be out in early June, and you could go on lorettabook.com to get the updates of the book. But it was at Miss Janet McFarland. She worked for the ARC, which used to be our Association for Retarded Citizens. No more, it's the ARC. So we had come so far. And that's one of my things I do. I like to advocate and make sure that people well after me had the more opportunities than what I had.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Loretta, when I first met you was at the ADA Day last July at
Yes.
courthouse in Wamsville in Oneida, and I'll never forget your speech was so compelling and real and genuine, and I like that. You spoke from the
Thank you.
heart. And my son, who was followed you, who had never spoken in front of a group, I think you helped inspire him because
Yeah,
Mhm.
he spoke very well.
even though he read from a paper, he's never done that before ever. So
You
I
never
think what
know until you try.
right. I think what you
Mhm.
said at that day resonated with him and others around. So I'm like I said, I'm so glad you're out there, and continue to keep doing what you're doing.
And
And your
thank you
mom
for what
was
you're doing.
and your mom was right. You can't put your elbows on the table. Someday you could be with the president. You have to have good manners,
And I
right?
spoke to 6 presidents,
Wow. Who was your
ending up
favorite?
with, you know, I liked Obama. He was great. Loved everybody. They were all genuine. But I would have to say the second Bush had me in stitches.
Really?
Yes, but I love the Obamas. Everybody was just great. Mr. Biden, even though he was at the end of his career, he was still
Mhm.
awesome.
What great experiences. Is there anybody else famous that you've met that you just like stands out to you as, like I
You
never
know, I'm
thought I'd
not
get to
into
talk to
whether
them.
somebody is famous. I'm not into whether somebody is famous. I'm into people. And there's a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
thing that one of my advocates, when I stay at a house, it says something about the friends you meet aren't met at the end. They're met along the road.
Uh, so
And
true.
so I met so many genuine people. Right
Hmm.
now, I'm watching the monks as they travel to Washington.
Yeah, that's quite a distance. And now with the
Yes,
weather, oh, I know.
to
They walked
promote
right through my
peace.
friend's hometown. I love that.
Yes, to promote peace without saying a word.
Hmm.
Peace is done by action.
It is. Are there any closing words or stories that you want to leave our audience with?
Never let nobody underestimate the power of you.
That says it
Wise
all.
word.
Yes. Thank you, Loretta, so much.
You're welcome.
I feel like
Thank you.
you could have your own show, right? Like you could you could do this all day long. You have so many
Yeah,
stories.
I'm getting ready to go to the Y. I just came from Turkey Hill. Got a
Uh-huh.
cup of tea. I'm going to drink my
Yep.
cup of tea. And then I just ate my yogurt. I ate my breakfast lunch. And I'm going to go to the Y. I'm going to trench through all these people who don't shovel the walks. It's brutal.
Right? You should be the one shoveling, right? You
I
get it
already shoveled.
done.
I shoveled my neighbor out. I shoveled me out. I asked the guy up the street. He was out the other day. I said, "Hey, I'll help you shovel." He says no, he was Spanish, and I think English is spoken too fast to him. I
Hmm.
said, and I start using the sign shovel. Me, I help shovel. He goes, good, good, good. I said, okay. I just want to ask. I said, because you know what? If I help you shovel, that's a workout for me, and I don't have to go to the Y.
That's a beautiful way to look at it.
Yep. I helped push a guy out yesterday, and everybody stood there and looked. And I guess people didn't notice I was a woman. But I was pushing this little car out, and then another guy comes, then he leaves, and then two other guys come, and then finally this truck comes up, and they had salt, and they put it under the tire, and we all three got together and pushed the man and his wife out. Sounded like she had an important doctor's appointment,
Mhm.
and they were
It's the
stuck.
Yeah, it's the kindness of strangers sometimes. You know, the person who just steps up and does something when everybody else just drives by.
This drives
And
by.
yeah, we can't do that in this world. There's too many
No,
things going on right now. We have to stop
that's
driving
like me
by.
sitting
We
here
have to
knitting
stop.
knockers. I'm
Yeah.
knitting the insert for cancer for women,
Hmm.
and I buy all my own yarn. And the same way with my preemie hats. I sit there and people say, "Oh, you're always knitting, doing something for somebody else." I said, "You know what? Live for yourself, you'll live in vain. If you live for others, you'll live again. In the kingdom of Jah, you shall reign, shall pass it on." I said, that's a song Bob Marley sings. I
Hmm.
said, and that song just motivates me to do something for somebody else, especially one I don't know. I won't know the babies who get those hats. I won't know the women who get my knockers.
Hmm. That's so true. My daughter had one of those hats. I don't know who made it, but she was a preemie. She was 9 weeks early, and we
Oh,
still
okay.
have it. Yeah, no, it really does mean something when you're in that moment and a complete stranger spent time to give you this gift when you were having a hard time. And so thank you for everything you do, for your
Yes.
wisdom, your funny stories, and your hard ones too, because I think people need to hear it all to appreciate what kind of life you've led. And do you have any future plans besides this book? Any big thing on the horizon that you're looking forward to?
No, not right now at the moment. I've been pretty busy. Actually, I just got a call and I didn't answer it. It was somebody from DC, so I had to get off and answer. That's why my phone was ringing again.
Hey, you're an important lady. So you go take that call and keep us looped in when we release the episode. We'll put some links. Maybe we could have a link to your book and things like that so people can stay connected to you because you have a great story. Thank you so
And
much.
Miss Heather, never underestimate the power of your daughter. Make her strive and try to be her best at what she does. And the same to you, sir. I know you don't underestimate the power of your son, but let him
Right.
grow and be the best that he can be and support him. And
Thanks.
both of your children will do great.
Thank you,
Young
ma'am.
adults.
Thanks to Loretta for paving the way for all of us.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. Until next time.
Continue the conversation by joining our Facebook group. If you're a fan of the show, please join our supporters club. Subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your favorite listening app, but most of all, share it with your friends. Just one more click or comment can make a huge difference and help us to continue finding common ground.